Hexagram number 13. Fellowship with men. True fellowship is founded on fellowship with the sage. Exclude the sage, and there can be no true lasting fellowship. Fire flaming up to the heaven. Fire flaming up to the heaven provides the image of friends gathered in fellowship as around a campfire or hearth. The achievement of peace and harmony among one's fellows is a natural drive of the human heart. This hexagram points to gentleness and refinement of spirit and the sense of humanity known to Confucianism as Zen. Fellowship with men in the open success. This means that only openness in fellowship succeeds. The phrase "in the open" specifies that which makes true fellowship possible. This idea is reiterated and elaborated in the first line by the statement that the basic principles of any kind of union must be equally accessible to all concerned. Secret agreements bring misfortune. One is reminded of treaties and contracts in which the fears, doubts, and expectations of each party are brought into the open. If all parties seek to deal with these issues sincerely, an agreement based on just principles and mutual trust can begin to be established successfully. Harboring secret reservations or hedging for selfish purposes ruins all possibility of creating fair and just agreements. In making agreements with others, we should take care that no secret reservations exist in either party's attitude. Such reservations usually surface if we are attentive. When they do, we should postpone or abandon the agreement until the wrong attitudes are corrected. Fellowship in the clan refers to hidden reservations and elements of factionalism by which a person seeks to protect his interests at others' expense. We often receive this line when we resist following the way of the sage because of such mistrust. The third line, "He hides weapons in the thicket," illustrates a type of hidden reservation or element of factionalism. One of the parties holds back a weapon because he distrusts the situation. For example, he calls a meeting on an innocent pretext, knowing that he intends to ambush the others with accusations and claims. The commentary to the hexagram focuses on the idea that enduring unity, whether it be between ourselves and God, between husband and wife, or between those further removed, must be based on concerns that are universal. This refers to a point of view which anyone, through reflecting on what is fair, would agree to be just and correct. Petty likes and dislikes and judgments based on trivial considerations are put aside in favor of the essentials of the matter. We often receive this hexagram when some adjustment or change in attitude is needed. Either we need to review the basic principles of fellowship with men so that we make sure that what we require of others is correct, or we need to search out hidden reservations in our attitude that isolates us from the sage. Typical of such reservations are plans of what we'll do in case the I Ching's counsel does not suit us, or of what we will do if the changes we desire fail to materialize within the time frame we think reasonable. Secret reservations of attitude are regarded as factionalism. In learning about the various forms of factionalism, we soon realized that by correcting our relationship with the sage, we correct all our relationships. Indeed, our relationship with the sage is the model for all human relationships. Consulting the I Ching frivolously just to see what it says is a factionalism in which we form a partnership with our ego that excludes the sage. This isolates us from the help the sage can give because he cannot relate to such arrogance. Factionalism exists when we agree in our hearts to go along with something that is incorrect, and when we sacrifice the higher good to obtain a lesser benefit. Factionalism occurs when we receive aid from the sage without accepting any responsibility to set a good example. Factionalism exists when we use the I Ching as a tool to gain selfish ends. Many beginning students of the I Ching harbor an inner demand that the sage prove himself before they will relinquish distrust. They stand back with a show-me attitude. The sage in such circumstances remains reserved. While the sage does not require that we believe he exists, he he cannot, with dignity, cater to an arrogant distrust. In the face of such defects of attitude, the beginning student often finds that his relationship with the sage varies. When he is sincere and open-minded, he understands the hexagrams and is nourished by them. When he distrusts the sage, becomes remote, and the I Ching lines incomprehensibly, and the I Ching lines incomprehensible. He also finds that so long as he clings to his secret distrust, he remains locked in the vicious circle of no progress. Following the principles of fellowship does not mean that we are obligated to like people when following the principles of fellowship does not mean that we are obligated to like people when our inner feelings are to the contrary. Nor does it mean that we must regard people as credible before they have made us aware of their credibility. In business, we are not obligated to extend credit or trust before customers have given evidence of their credibility and trustworthiness. Just as the sage comes to meet us only halfway in response to our sincerity and conscientiousness. We should remain similarly reserved and reticent when others are not sincere and open to us. All coming to meet should be approached with care so that we avoid succumbing to the subtle flatteries and seductions implicit in social forms. Flatteries and seductions have power when we lose contact with our inner voice, and when our ego becomes involved through self-enjoying the comforts of self-deception. Factionalism always results in negative reactions. When we hold secret reservations based on a general distrust of people, we not only awaken distrust in them, we ensure that a satisfactory relationship cannot occur simply because of the actively undermining power of doubt. We inadvertently do the trustworthy person an injustice and mentally fix the untrustworthy person in his untrustworthy ways. Distrust traps the misunderstood. Distrust traps the mistrusted one into favorable patterns of response. Distrust traps the mistrusted one into unfavorable patterns of response. We can have a creative effect on the untrustworthy person if we are willing, after acknowledging his defective attitude, to turn the matter over to the cosmos and return our attitude to neutral. Thereafter, we neither believe nor disbelieve him, but relate to him with caution and reserve until he changes his ways. We do not measure his progress. Instead, we react to the momentary ways in which he reveals himself. Keeping attuned to his eclipses of personality, we respond sincerely and openly. When he is sincere and open, we retreat into non-participation. When he regresses into suspicion, indifference, and insensitivity. The only reservations of attitude we can justify have in any relationship are those that conform to natural and universal morality. We always reserve our dignity and self-respect and do only what accords with our moral limits. If we have not been morally correct in the past and discover our error, we retreat and correct ourselves. No immoral agreement is binding, and all cosmic law supports our retreat from doing wrong. Other forms of factionalism occur when we attempt to attunity. Other forms of factionalism occur when we attempt to attain unity with some by excluding others. When we tolerate misbehavior in some but are harsh on others who transgress, when we indulge thoughts that make others feel inferior, when we assume rights over people or things, our children, mates, or animals, we do not have the right to abuse, degrade, or humiliate anything. Among Western customs considered decadent by the sage are those that give us the feeling that we are masters of the universe and that the earth and its inhabitants were made solely for our use and benefit. Our rightful purpose is to serve the higher power in bringing order to the myriad things of creation. In this work, we are responsible to the higher power for everything we do. Changing line number 1. Fellowship with men at the gate. No blame. The foundation of enduring unity is openness. Receiving this line reminds us to inspect our attitude for unfair conditions that have not been stated. It also reminds us to be open, on guard against unstated feelings and expectations that others may have towards us. If one is careful at the beginning of fellowship, although the extra effort may seem petty and troublesome, the agreements and associations we make will prove more satisfactory, and those we slip into carelessly and quickly. Easy relationships always contain hidden presumptions and expectations. This line also refers to secret reservations of attitude we have in our relationships. Secret reservations occur when we put a time limit on accomplishing our goals, when we are tempted to abandon the path because it is more difficult than we expected, when after realizing the time and effort required, we doubt the effort is worth it, when we doubt that the goal can be or should be attained. All such thoughts threaten perseverance. Hiding behind a grandiose image, the ego feels superior as it weighs and judges the sage's leadership. Such presumption is based on a secret agreement we have allowed to develop between ourselves and our ego. This factionalism rules out an open, sincere fellowship with the sage. Another secret reservation occurs when we wait to ambush, to press our thoughts on others. If people are not receptive, we must remain reserved. No divergent aims have yet arisen. If only this line has been drawn, the hexagram changes to retreat, meaning that we should retreat from thoughts of giving up our goal to rescue the others, thinking of clinging, thinking of changing our goals in midstream constitutes a divergent aim. Changing line number 2. Fellowship in the clan. Humiliation. This line indicates that we harbor factional thoughts. For example, we criticize others but fail to correct ourselves. We feel we have special rights and privileges over others, or we hedge on waiting the allotted time to achieve the rescue of those with whom we have inner connections. If we distrust that our goal of unity can be attained, we soon settle for one of the factions. We ignore the obligation to do the correct thing and instead do what is comfortable and enjoyable. Or, although we agree with the I Ching's principles, we continue in the comfortable habit of decadent tradition. In all these things, we choose the clan, what is comfortable, over what is universally true and good. Fellowship in the clan also refers to forming a unity with another while he remains incorrect. We form a faction with desire, thus exclude the sage. Changing line number 3. He hides weapons in the thicket. For 3 years he does not rise up. This line may refer either to another's having secret distrust and bad motives, or to our distrust of him, or of the basic direction of the I Ching. True fellowship becomes more and more impossible because distrust is fortified by failure, and failure is ensured by distrust. This line also refers to distrust of oneself. One feels unable to carry things to completion, or to correct oneself, or to be of service to that which is higher. Here, our ego makes a last-ditch effort to collapse our will so that it can resume control. It creates the illusion that we are powerless against it. This illusion becomes true only if we believe the ego's claim. To defeat the ego's power, we need to ask the sage for help. Meanwhile, we should remain persevering. Patient acceptance of the situation will enable us to acquire the clarity needed to overcome the doubts put forward by our ego. Changing line number 4. He climbs up on his wall. He cannot attack. Good fortune. This line states that misunderstanding divides people because their problems seem inseparable. They give up on each other. They no longer attack. Although it is incorrect for them to give up on each other, it is better that they remain separated than to continue fighting. This line also refers to being tempted to give up on our relationship with another person. It reassures us that in spite of all difficulties and mistakes, we will succeed if we persevere. Changing line number 5. Men bound in fellowship. After great struggles, they succeed in meeting. Two people divided by the course of life are meant to be reunited at some other time when their troubles will be over. The answer to the inner question one asks, am I meant to resolve my problems with this person? Is yes, eventually. But now we must be patient. The line also means that we are meant to resolve our problems with all people. We should give up on no one. It also means that we should hold no one as an adversary. If in our inner eye we hold someone afar, we may be afraid of his getting closer. In various defensive ways, we may separate him from us. We need to drop our braced attitude and adopt a just and moderate view of his mistakes and transgressions. Changing line number 6. Fellowship with men in the meadow. No remorse. Here we see that the way of the sage is the only path to follow. However, since we still hold doubts, we do not achieve the happiness that comes from a truly enlightened understanding in which we see with clarity the great power that is aroused by following the path of the true and the good. The way of the sage appears to be more difficult than it is. This completes hexagram number 13.